Most men walk into a room and hope to be accepted. I walked into a room and expected to command it. Power is not requested, it is assumed. If you speak with certainty, move with purpose, and act without hesitation, the world has no choice but to follow. You don't rise by asking permission. You rise by making your presence undeniable. In this video, I'll teach you how to walk, speak, and think like a commander. So, no room, no crowd, no force can ignore your presence again. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Let me tell you something about power that your teachers never understood. Power is not granted, it emanates. When I first stood before my troops in Italy, I was 26 years old. Most of these men were hardened veterans, twice my age, who had seen more battles than I had birthdays. By conventional wisdom, they should have dismissed me. But from the moment I stepped onto that field, there was no question who commanded it. You see, they judged me before I spoke a single word. And in that judgment, they found themselves wanting to follow. This is the first lesson of command. Your presence must speak before your voice does. I watch how most of you enter spaces, tentative, seeking approval, waiting for permission to exist. This is why you will never command anything. You telegraph weakness before you've even begun. When I entered a room, I entered it completely. My presence filled every corner, touched every person, demanded every eye. This is not arrogance, it is certainty. And certainty, my ambitious friends, is contagious. When you carry absolute conviction in your bones, others catch it like a fever. They don't choose to follow you. Their bodies decide before their minds. Catch up. You want to know how to develop this presence? First, understand that it begins in solitude. Every morning before my generals awoke, I walked the camps alone. In that solitude, I didn't practice speeches or plan strategies. I absorbed the weight of my purpose into every cell. I let the magnitude of my vision fill me until my very movements changed. This is what separates commanders from pretenders. Pretenders act powerful. Commanders simply are powerful. They have merged so completely with their sense of purpose that doubt cannot find a foothold in their psyche. Think of power as water in a glass. Most people are half full, sloshing around, creating ripples of uncertainty. I taught myself to be still water, filled to the brim, perfectly contained but ready to overflow. This stillness is felt by everyone. In your vicinity, it creates a gravitational pull that affects the very atmosphere of any space you enter. When you walk into a room tomorrow, do not hope for attention, expect it. Do not wish for respect, assume it is already yours. Your presence should enter the room before your physical body does, like thunder before lightning. Remember, you are judged in seconds, but those judgments last hours. Make those seconds count. Walk as if you're crossing your own empire. Breathe as if the air itself serves at your pleasure. Look at others not with the hope of acceptance, but with the certainty of command. This is not something you practice occasionally. This is a state of being you must maintain every moment, whether you're addressing an army or ordering coffee. The aura of command is not a coat you put on for important occasions. It is your skin. Wear it always. When they crowned me Emperor of France, do you know what changed in me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because I had built my throne long before. They gave me one. This is what you must understand about true power. It exists in your mind before it exists in the world. I was born on a small island to modest nobility, hardly the beginning of an emperor. But from my earliest days, I carried myself as if destiny itself was my birthright. The crown was merely the world catching up to what I already knew. Most of you build your identity like a house of cards, fragile, dependent on external validation, ready to collapse at the slightest breeze of disapproval. I built mine like a fortress, stone by stone, each belief mortared with absolute conviction. When others doubted, my certainty only grew stronger. Their resistance was merely proof that They couldn't see what I already knew to be true. Your identity must be unshakable. When I walked into a room full of aristocrats who sneered at my Corsican accent, did I shrink? Did I try to modify my speech to please them? No. I spoke with such authority that soon they were trying to imitate me. This is the power of an identity. Built like a throne, it forces the world to adapt to you, not the other way around. Every morning, look in the mirror and see what others cannot yet see. When I was a mere artillery officer, I saw an emperor. When they called me the little corporal, I smiled because I knew they were addressing the future master of Europe. Your vision of yourself must be so grand, so unshakable, that it feels more real than the temporary circumstances surrounding you. But understand this, a powerful identity is not about empty boasting. It's about cultivating an inner certainty, so profound that boasting becomes unnecessary. I never had to tell people I was powerful. My presence did that for me. My actions spoke with such clarity that words were superfluous. Your posture, your walk, your gaze, these are not mere physical attributes. They are the physical manifestation of your inner throne. When you move, move with the certainty of someone who knows their destiny is extraordinary. When you stand, stand as if the ground beneath you is your natural domain. When you speak, speak as someone who knows their words will echo through time. Most of you waste energy trying to convince others of your worth. Stop. That energy should be spent reinforcing your own unshakable sense of destiny. The world doesn't hand power to those who beg for it. It bows before those who have already claimed it in their minds. Remember this, every great destiny begins as a secret known only to its bearer. Let them call you mad. Let them dismiss your ambitions as fantasy. Their doubt is the mortar that will strengthen your conviction. Build your identity with such towering certainty that reality will have no choice but to reshape itself around your vision. You want to know why I succeeded where others failed? Because when everyone else was playing at power, I was power. When they were acting a part, I was living my truth. Your identity is not a role you play. It is the core truth from which all your actions must flow. The first 5 seconds of your entry determine the next 5 hours of your influence. When I entered the halls of the Tuileries Palace for the first time as first consul, I didn't shuffle in like a bureaucrat granted a favor. I strode in like a force of nature claiming its domain. Those first steps set the tone for an empire. Let me teach you the anatomy of a commanding entrance. Most of you waste these crucial moments. You enter spaces like apologetic shadows, your eyes darting around seeking approval, your shoulders hunched as if asking permission to exist. This is why you will never command anything more significant than a coffee order. Here is how you enter. A room like an emperor, first pause at the threshold. This is not hesitation. This is preparation. In that moment, you own the doorway. Let your presence fill it completely. When I entered a room, I would stand there for precisely 2 seconds, letting everyone feel the shift in the atmosphere. Your eyes must lead the way. Before your body moves, your gaze should sweep the room once, not frantically, but with the calm assessment of a general surveying his battlefield. This is not about looking for friendly faces. It's about claiming territory with your eyes. Then, and only then, you move. Your first step should be deliberate, almost ceremonial. I always stepped with my left foot first, a habit from military training that became a signature of power. The sound of your footfall should have weight, not loud, but purposeful. Each step should say, "This ground is now mine." Your path through the room must be direct. No meandering, no uncertain trajectories. Move as if an invisible red carpet rolls out before you. I never walked around groups of people. I walked through them. They parted like water, not because I forced them, but because my movement gave them no other choice. Your shoulders must remain squared, your chin slightly elevated, not in arrogance, but in certainty. Your arm should swing naturally, but with restraint. Remember, every movement is a statement. Unnecessary gesture betrays uncertainty. power moves with economy and purpose. Most crucially, you must master the art of the pause. When you reach your destination in the room, plant yourself as if roots have grown from your feet through the ulam floor. No fidgeting, no weight shifting. You become the gravitational center around which the room revolves. Let me tell you about the power of stillness. When I stood before the directory to report on my Italian campaigns, I didn't pace or gesture wildly. I stood like a statue, letting my stillness draw them in. The more still you are, the more others will move around you like planets around a sun. Your entrance should create a ripple effect. People should feel compelled to reposition themselves in relation to where you stand. If they don't, you haven't commanded the space properly. When I entered a room, the entire energy shifted to accommodate my presence. This wasn't magic, it was mechanics. Practice this. Tonight, when you enter any room, your home, a restaurant, your office, enter it like you're about to change the course of history. Because here's what most don't understand. Every entrance is a chance to reset the power dynamic. Every doorway is an opportunity to establish dominance. You have 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, you must transform from a person entering a room into a force of nature claiming its territory. Master this, and you'll never need to demand attention. You'll command it without a word. Your voice is not merely a tool for communication, it is an instrument of power. When I addressed my troops before battle, I didn't speak to be heard, I spoke to be felt. Every word carried the weight of empire, every phrase was loaded with destiny. This is how you must learn to speak. Most of you waste your words. You spill them like cheap wine, diluting their power with unnecessary volume. You scatter them like seeds in the wind, hoping some will take root. This is the mark of the powerless. When I spoke, each word was a carefully aimed arrow, each sentence a calculated strike. Let me teach you the architecture of powerful speech. First, understand that power speaks in periods, not commas. Most people string their thoughts together with and but, creating chains of weakness. Break your thoughts into imperial declarations, short, decisive, final. When I told my men, beyond those mountains lies Italy, it was not the beginning of a discussion. It was the end of all doubt. Your tempo must vary like the movements of an army. Sometimes you advance quickly, words marching forth in rapid succession. Then, suddenly, you halt. The silence between your phrases should be as powerful as the phrases themselves. I would often pause for 3 full seconds after making a crucial point. In those seconds, my words would sink into their minds like stones, into still water. Volume is the crutch of the weak. True power often speaks softly, drawing others in, forcing them to lean forward, to strain to catch every word. When I wanted absolute attention, I would lower my voice until it was just above a whisper. The room would go silent, everyone holding their breath to hear. This is true command, making others work to hear you. Your tone must carry absolute conviction. I never hedged, never softened my declarations with maybe or perhaps. I think, and I believe are phrases for the uncertain. Power speaks in absolutes. When I said, "We will cross the Alps in winter," it was not a suggestion or a hope. It was a statement of fact that had simply not yet occurred in time. Learn to use silence as punctuation. Most of you fear silence, rushing to fill it with nervous chatter. Power embraces silence. After making a decisive point, I would often stand in complete silence, letting my words echo in their minds. The longer you can hold silence while maintaining eye contact, the more weight your words carry. Your voice must emanate from your core, not your throat. Shallow breathing produces shallow power. Before important speeches, I would take 3 deep breaths, letting my voice rise from the same place as my courage. Speak from this place always. Let your words carry the full weight of your conviction. Remember, every word you speak either strengthens or weakens your position. There is no neutral ground in the empire of influence. When others speak, they should feel the difference between their words and yours. Their words should feel like copper against your gold. Most crucially, you must learn to speak with finality. Each statement should feel like a door closing, a matter settled. I never ended statements with upward inflections, turning declarations into questions. Power doesn't ask, it concludes. Practice this tonight. Speak half as many words with twice the intention. Let each phrase land like a flag planted in conquered territory. Speak not to fill space, but to command it. Speak not to be heard, but to be remembered. Speak not as one voice among many, but as the voice that silences all others. The world is always listening, even when only one person is in the room. Speak always, as if your words will echo through history. Because here's what I learned on the fields of glory. They will. Let me tell you about fear. Before my first battle, my hands trembled. Yes, Napoleon Bonaparte trembled. But while others let fear paralyze them, I learned to harness it like a wild horse, turning its raw energy into unstoppable momentum. This is the secret that separates commanders from the commanded. You think great leaders don't feel fear? Nonsense. We feel it more intensely than most. The difference is that we understand what others don't. Fear is simply energy waiting to be redirected. When I stood before the directory, my heart pounded like drums of war, but I didn't fight this energy. I rode it. Most of you try to eliminate fear. This is your first mistake. Fear is not your enemy. It is your fuel. When you feel that surge of adrenaline, that tightness in your chest, that thundering pulse, this is power gathering within you. But like any great force, it must be channeled, not contained. Let me teach you the alchemy of fear. First, recognize that fear and excitement are the same energy wearing different masks. When my scouts reported the enemy's superior numbers, my body's response was identical to the thrill of victory. Racing heart, heightened senses, time slowing down. The only difference was my interpretation. Here's how you transmute fear into charisma. Start with your breath. When fear rises, most people breathe shallowly, signaling weakness to everyone around them. Instead, breathe deeply, letting the air fill your belly. I would take 3 such breaths before every crucial moment. This doesn't eliminate the fear, it weaponizes it. Your posture must rebel against your instincts. Fear wants you to shrink, to lower your shoulders, to protect your vital organs. Do the opposite. When fear strikes, expand. Take up more space. I would intentionally widen my stance and raise my chin precisely when my body screamed to curl inward. This physical defiance transforms fear into presence. Your voice is the greatest betrayer of fear unless you master it. Notice how fear makes your voice rise in pitch. Force it lower. Speak more slowly, not faster. When addressing troops before battle, I would intentionally lower my voice, making others lean in. This creates a feedback loop of power. The more they lean in, the more your fear transforms into authority. Learn to love the physical sensations of fear. When your hands tingle with nervous energy, don't hide them, use them. I would often harness this energy through deliberate gestures, turning anxiety into emphasis. Every surge of fear became a surge of commanding energy. Most crucially, understand that fear is contagious, but so is courage. When you transmute your fear into power, others feel it. They sense the transformation. This is why I could lead men into battles they should have fled. They saw me standing calm in the storm of my own fear, and their fear became courage through osmosis. Here's an exercise I used before every major confrontation. Instead of trying to calm yourself, intensify everything. Feel the fear fully. Let it rise like a tide. Then at its peak, channel it outward as pure authority. Your racing thoughts become razor-sharp focus. Your nervous energy becomes commanding presence. Remember, the greatest moments in history were navigated by people feeling exactly what you feel. The difference is that they understood fear for what it really is, power looking for a purpose. Your hands shake, let them shake the world. Your heart pounds, let it pound like war drums. Your mind races, let it race toward victory. Tonight, when fear rises, don't wish for courage. Courage is fear that has found its purpose. Don't wait for confidence. Confidence is fear that has been given a mission. Stand in your fear like a general surveying his troops and order it to serve your command. Before I conquered territories, I conquered rooms. Every space you enter is a battlefield waiting to be mapped, every person a force to be measured and maneuvered. Let me teach you how to read a room with the same precision I used to read the fields of Austerlitz. First, understand that people arrange themselves in rooms the way armies arrange themselves on battlefields. The dominant forces take the high ground. In a room, this means the positions of natural power. Watch who stands, who sits, who claims. The space near the walls versus the center. These are not random choices. They are unconscious declarations of perceived power. When I entered the French Directory for the first time, I didn't just see 5 men in elaborate dress. I saw their positioning, their alliances, their insecurities radiating like heat signatures. The one who spoke the loudest was often the weakest, compensating for uncertainty with volume. The quiet one who watched everyone else, he was the real threat. Learn to read the invisible lines of force in any room. People naturally create triangles and squares of influence. Notice who faces whom, who turns their back to others, who maintains sight lines to the exits. I could map these patterns instantly, seeing where the power clustered and where it fractured. Body language is your reconnaissance. Watch for the micro movements that betray inner states. A slight lean forward shows engagement or aggression. A lean back with crossed arms signals either comfort in power or defensive resistance. I once won a negotiation simply by noting how my opponent's fingers drummed when certain topics arose. His tells revealed his pressure points. Listen for the subsurface currents of conversation. The official discussion is rarely where the real action lies. In every room, there are at least 3 conversations happening, the one being spoken, the one being implied, and the one being avoided. Master commanders operate in all 3 simultaneously. Look for the natural leaders. They're not always in formal positions of power. In every room, there are people others subtly look to before responding. These are your key pieces on the board. Win them, and you win the room. I would often direct my most powerful statements to the second most powerful person in the room, making them my ally in unseating the first. Identify the energy centers. Some people are force multipliers. They amplify whatever energy approaches them. Others are black holes. They absorb and nullify energy. Know which is which. I would plant my strongest supporters near the energy multipliers and isolate the energy drains. Watch for alliances and fault lines. People who mirror each other's posture are typically aligned. Those who maintain maximum distance while still being in the same conversation are opponents. I would map these relationships instantly, looking for weak points in enemy alliances and opportunities to forge new ones. Temperature, check the room constantly. Is the energy rising or falling? Are people leaning in or pulling back? These collective shifts are like weather patterns on a battlefield. They determine when to advance and when to hold position. I could feel when a room was ready to be moved to action and when it needed more preparation. Most crucially, learn to spot the hidden power players. In every room, there's someone whose opinion carries unusual weight. They might not speak often, but when they do, others listen differently. These are the kingmakers. I would identify them within minutes and ensure they saw me as an ally, not a threat. Your position in the room matters. I never sat with my back to doors or crowds. I positioned myself where I could see everyone while being seen by everyone. This isn't paranoia, it's tactical advantage. Your physical position should reinforce your psychological position. Remember, people reveal their power dynamics through proxemics, their use of space, the distance they keep, the angles they choose, the barriers they place between themselves and others. These are all messages written in the language of space, Learn to read this language fluently. Start practicing tonight. Walk into rooms. And before you engage with anyone, take 30 seconds to read the battlefield. Map the power positions, identify the alliances, locate the energy centers. Your eyes should do what my scouts did. Gather intelligence that determines victory or defeat. Because here's what most never grasp. The room is won or lost before the first word is spoken. The commander who best reads the battlefield controls it. Do you know what all great leaders have in common? We never waited for permission to lead. When I took command in Italy, I didn't ask the directory if I could revolutionize warfare. I simply did it. Leadership is not granted. It is seized. Let me show you how to command without waiting for the crown. Most of you make the same critical mistake. You wait to be anointed. You look for approval, for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Now it's your turn to lead." This is why you remain followers. True leaders don't wait for turns. They create openings and step into them. The first principle of permissionless leadership is this: assume command by solving problems others merely complain about. When I found the army of Italy in disarray, I didn't write reports about their problems. I didn't form committees. I reorganized them immediately, treating their chaos as an invitation to command. Leadership abhors a vacuum. In any group, there is always a gap between what needs to be done and what others are willing to do. This gap is your opportunity. I built my early reputation not through rank, but by stepping into these gaps with decisive action. When others hesitated, I moved. When they debated, I decided. Here's how you begin. Start with small domains. Before I commanded armies, I commanded conversations. Before I led nations, I led meetings. Practice assuming control in minor situations. When a group is uncertain, be the one who provides clarity. When there's confusion, be the one who creates order. Your authority must come from competence, not position. I knew more about artillery than any man in my command. This expertise meant that even generals deferred to my judgment before I held any significant rank. Master your domain so thoroughly that authority becomes natural, not imposed. Learn to give directions as if you expect them to be followed. Most people phrase commands as questions or suggestions. Maybe we should, or what do you think about? This is the language of uncertainty. I never asked if my troops would take a hill. I told them when we would take it. The how was implied in the when. Your presence must fill the leadership void before your words do. Walk into chaos with calm certainty. Stand in confusion with clear purpose. People naturally follow those who seem to know where they're going. I never announced I was taking charge. I simply began acting with such clarity that following me became the most natural response. Understand this: permission to lead never arrives. No moment of cosmic authorization descends from above. You must create your own authority through action. When I saw France in turmoil, I didn't ask if I could save her. I simply began doing what needed to be done. Most crucially, learn to lead through momentum. Once you begin taking charge, don't stop. Each decisive action creates energy for the next. When I took command in Egypt, I didn't pause to consolidate my authority. I kept making decisions, kept moving forward. Leadership, like warfare, is won through constant advance. Never apologize for leading. When others question your authority, respond with more decisive action, not defensive explanation. I never explained why I should be in command. I simply commanded so effectively that the question became irrelevant. Your conviction must be contagious. People follow certainty, not title. When I told my men we would cross the Alps in winter, I didn't convince them it was possible. I made them certain it was inevitable. Your belief in your right to lead must be so absolute that it transfers to others through mere proximity. Start today. In your next meeting, don't wait to be called on. Speak with the authority of someone whose thoughts must be heard. When you see a problem, don't wait for assignment. Begin solving it as if it were already your responsibility. When others look, Confused, don't wait for clarity. Provide it. Remember, every great leader in history started leading before they had permission. They led because they saw what needed to be done and refused to wait for authorization to do it. The world doesn't give power to those who wait for it. It yields to those who take it through bold, decisive action. Leadership is not a position to be granted, but a vacuum to be filled. Fill it. Your eyes are not merely organs of sight. They are instruments of power. I conquered as much territory through my gaze as I did through my armies. The way you use your eyes can dominate a room more effectively than any weapon. Let me teach you how to build an empire with your gaze. First, understand that eye contact is combat. Every exchange of glances is a battle for dominance. When I faced Tsar Alexander at Tilsit, our first real battle was fought entirely through our eyes. I held his gaze until he looked away. In that moment, I knew I had won more than just a staring contest. Most of you waste the power of your eyes. You glance around nervously, dart your gaze away at the first sign of contact, look down when challenged. These are the eye movements of prey, not predators. A commander's gaze must be steady, intentional, and unwavering. Learn the art of the owl, dominant gaze. When you look at someone, look at them as if you're studying a map of territory you intend to conquer. Not aggressive, not threatening, simply evaluating with calm certainty. I would often fix my gaze on someone for 3 full seconds longer than comfortable. In those seconds, power dynamics shift. Your eyes must learn to command attention without demanding it. When I entered a room, I wouldn't look around frantically trying to catch every eye. Instead, I would fix my gaze at a point slightly above everyone's heads, letting them come to me. This creates a gravitational pull. Others will feel compelled to look at you. Master the power of selective attention. Sometimes the most dominant move is to deliberately withhold your gaze. When someone spoke out of turn in my war councils, I would simply refuse to look at them. This visual dismissal was more powerful than any verbal rebuke. Your eyes must speak multiple languages. Learn to layer your gaze with meaning. There's the look of approval that builds loyalty, the look of disappointment that corrects behavior, the look of challenge that tests resolve. I could promote or demote officers with just a shift in my gaze. Understand the psychology of eye movement. When you break eye contact, how you do it matters. Breaking contact by looking down shows submission. Breaking contact by looking to the side shows disinterest. Breaking contact by looking up shows contemplation. I would often break eye contact upward when receiving reports. It showed I was considering the information while maintaining dominance. Most crucially, learn to read others through their eyes. Eyes reveal everything: fear, deception, loyalty, ambition. Before every major battle, I would look into the eyes of my commanders. Those who held my gaze with calm certainty were given the most crucial assignments. Those who couldn't maintain eye contact were positioned where their uncertainty would cost us least. Your gaze must have purpose. When addressing a group, don't let your eyes wander randomly. Move your gaze deliberately, as if drawing lines of power through the room. I would often trace a triangle with my eyes when speaking to groups. This creates a zone of influence, making everyone within that triangle feel personally addressed. Learn to use your peripheral vision strategically. While maintaining eye contact with one person, train yourself to monitor others in your field of view. This gives you the presence of an eagle, focused yet aware of everything. I could hold a general in conversation while watching how his subordinates reacted to our discussion. Practice the art of the lingering look. When you finish speaking to someone, hold your gaze on them for 1 extra second before turning away. This small extension of eye contact creates a moment of tension that reinforces your dominance. I would often use this technique after giving orders. It sealed the command with visual authority. Remember, your eyes project your inner state. If you doubt yourself, it will show. If you believe in your destiny, that too will shine through. I conquered Europe because when I looked at it, I already saw it as mine. Your gaze must carry the weight of absolute conviction. Start practicing tonight. Look at yourself in the mirror and hold your own gaze for 5 full minutes. If you can't dominate your own reflection, you cannot dominate a room. Your eyes must become weapons as sharp as any sword, as powerful as any army. Because here's what history teaches us: empires are built by those who dare to stare destiny in the eye without blinking. Silence is a weapon more powerful than words. When wielded with precision, it can dominate conversations, unsettle opponents, and command attention more effectively than the most eloquent speech. Let me teach you how to use silence as I used artillery with devastating effect. Most of you fear silence. You rush to fill every acoustic void with nervous chatter, weakening your position with each unnecessary word. I won many diplomatic battles simply by remaining silent while others talk themselves into corners. Remember this: power does not explain itself. The first principle of tactical silence is this: the longer you can hold silence while maintaining eye contact, the more power you accumulate. When my generals would bring me proposals, I would often listen without response, letting the silence stretch until they began to doubt their own ideas. This is not cruelty. It is strategy. Learn to use the pause. Most speak in streams, flowing from one thought to the next without break. Power speaks in blocks, separated by calculated silences. When I announced our campaign into Russia, I declared our intention, then held silence for 5 full seconds before stating our objective. These pauses weren't empty. They were pregnant with authority. Silence can be an invitation or a wall. When I wanted to draw information from someone, I would remain silent, with an expectant expression, creating a vacuum they felt compelled to fill. But when I wanted to end a line of discussion, my silence became impenetrable. Learn to make your silence speak different languages. Master the art of the delayed response. When someone makes a proposal or statement, don't rush to respond. Let the silence hang. I would often wait until the speaker began to fidget before speaking. This accomplishes 2 things. It makes them doubt their position, and it makes your response carry more weight. Your silence must have presence. Most people's silence is empty. They simply stop talking. Power's silence fills the room. When I stood silent before my troops, they could feel the weight of unspoken authority. Your silence should have mass and momentum. Learn to use micro-silences. Even within a single sentence, strategic pauses can emphasize your points more effectively than volume or gesture. When I said France has become too small for her glory, each pause amplified the impact of the words that followed. Silence is the ultimate display of control. Anyone can speak, but few can maintain powerful silence. In heated discussions, the one who can remain silent the longest often emerges victorious. I would let my opponents rage and rant while I sat in composed silence. Their words eventually exhausted themselves against my quiet strength. Most crucially, learn to silence others without speaking. A slight tilt of the head, a steady gaze, a small raise of the hand, combined with silence, these gestures can stop a speaker mid-sentence. I could quiet an entire war council with nothing more than a moment of focused silence. Your silence must be intentional. Random or awkward silences weaken your position. Strategic silences strengthen it. Before delivering crucial information, I would often hold silence for 3 seconds, long enough to ensure every ear was straining to hear what would follow. Practice the art of the silent entrance. When you enter a room, don't immediately speak. Let your presence register first. I would often stand in silence at the head of a table until every eye was fixed upon me. Only then would I begin, making my words seem like a reward for their attention. Remember, silence is not the absence of communication. It is communication. At its most profound, when you choose not to speak, you force others to confront the power of your presence without the distraction of your words. Start tonight. In your next conversation, deliberately hold your silence 2 seconds longer than comfortable. Feel the power build in that space. Watch how others react to this unusual display of control. Then, when you do speak, notice how much more weight your words carry. Because here's what I learned on my path to empire. Those who master silence never need to raise their voice to command attention. Their silence speaks volumes that mere words can never match. Resistance is inevitable. Criticism will come, but what separates commanders from pretenders is not the absence of doubt in others. It's the ability to transform that doubt into unwavering loyalty. Let me show you how to turn your critics into your most devoted followers. When I first proposed crossing the Alps in winter, my own generals doubted. They called it impossible, suicidal, mad, but I didn't argue with their doubt. I used it. I turned their skepticism into the very fuel that would power our triumph. This is the first lesson. Doubt is energy waiting to be redirected. Most of you handle resistance poorly. You either become defensive, weakening your position, or aggressive, creating enemies. Both responses reveal insecurity. When my officers questioned my strategies, I didn't defend or attack. I enlisted their doubt in service of my vision. Learn to welcome resistance. It shows engagement. When someone doubts you openly, they are invested enough to care. Silent doubt is your true enemy. I would often encourage my most skeptical officers to voice their concerns, not to address them, but to transform them into commitment through involvement. The art of converting doubt lies in how you receive it. When someone expresses skepticism, don't rush to prove them wrong. Instead, look at them with such unwavering certainty that their doubt begins to feel small in comparison. I would often respond to doubters with a simple, knowing smile, as if I possessed information they couldn't yet see. Your conviction must be contagious. When my armies faced seemingly impossible odds, I didn't try to convince them victory was possible. I operated with such absolute certainty that doubt felt foolish in my presence. Remember, people are not convinced by arguments. They are converted by conviction. Master the art of turning critics into stakeholders. When a general strongly opposed a strategy, I would often give him a crucial role in its execution. This accomplishes two things. It makes them personally invested in the success, and it shows your confidence is so complete you can trust even your critics. Learn to use doubt as a spotlight. When someone questions your capability, let their doubt illuminate your strength. When they say it cannot be done, respond with actions, not arguments. I didn't debate whether we could cross the Alps. I began planning how we would do it. Action silences doubt more effectively than words ever can. Most crucially, understand that doubt in others often masks a desire to believe. People want to follow strength, want to be part of something greater than themselves. When you maintain unwavering certainty in the face of their doubt, you offer them the conviction they secretly crave. Your response to doubt must be calibrated. Sometimes you acknowledge it briefly before dismissing it with action. Other times you ignore it completely, treating it as so beneath consideration it doesn't merit response. I would often let critics exhaust themselves against my silence, then simply proceed as if their doubt had never existed. Transform doubt through inclusion. When someone questions your vision, don't push them away, draw them closer. I would often tell my doubters, "Come, let me show you what you cannot yet see." This transforms them from external critics to internal participants in your success. Practice the art of selective listening. Not all doubt deserves response. Learn to distinguish between doubt born of genuine concern and doubt born of fear or envy. Address the former with inclusion, ignore the latter with imperial indifference. I would engage thoughtful skeptics while letting petty critics waste their energy on silence. Remember, the greatest leaders in history faced doubt at every turn. What made them great was not the absence of skepticism, but their ability to transform skeptics into believers through the sheer force of their conviction. Start tonight. When someone expresses doubt in your ability or vision, don't defend or attack. Instead, look at them with such calm certainty that their doubt begins to feel like a limitation in their perception, not your capability. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. Doubt is not your enemy. It is raw material waiting to be forged into unshakable loyalty. Most people live their lives in patterns, following invisible scripts that dictate their every move. But true power comes from breaking these patterns, in yourself and others. I didn't conquer Europe by being predictable. Let me show you how. To shatter the ordinary and command through disruption. First, understand this. Every person you meet is sleepwalking through a routine. They have predetermined responses, expected behaviors, comfortable rhythms. This is your opportunity. When I faced the Austrians at Ulm, I didn't attack where they expected. I broke their patterns by appearing where they thought impossible. Most of you are trapped in patterns yourselves. You speak when expected, move when prompted, react as anticipated. This makes you predictable, and predictable people cannot command. I would deliberately arrive at unusual times, speak at unexpected moments, break the choreography of power that others took for granted. Learn to identify patterns in others. Watch how they enter rooms, when they speak in meetings, how they respond. To challenge. These patterns are their chains and your opportunities. I could predict my opponent's moves because they were slaves to their patterns. Breaking them was simply a matter of timing. Your presence should disrupt rhythm. When everyone in a meeting leans forward, lean back. When they speak quickly, speak slowly. When they expect reaction, offer silence. I would often stand completely still in rooms full of movement, creating a gravitational center that forced others to adjust their patterns to mine. Master the art of pattern interruption. When someone launches into their practiced speech, break their flow with an unexpected question. When they settle into their power pose, change your position to make theirs feel awkward. I would sometimes interrupt my own generals mid-report, not from rudeness, but to keep them from falling into comfortable routines. Your movements must be deliberately unpredictable. Don't pace in straight lines, move in angles. Don't maintain constant eye contact. Shift your gaze with purpose. I would circle my war room in irregular patterns, keeping everyone alert, never knowing where I would stop or who I would address next. Learn to break conversational patterns. When everyone expects you to argue, agree, but with such intensity it unsettles them more than opposition. When they expect diplomacy, be blunt. When they expect aggression, be eerily calm. I once won a negotiation by suddenly agreeing with my opponent so completely that he began to doubt his own position. Most crucially, understand that patterns are comfort zones. People cling to them for safety. When you break patterns, you create psychological uncertainty, and uncertain minds look for leadership. I would deliberately create controlled chaos in my command structure, keeping everyone alert and dependent on my guidance. Your timing must become unpredictable. Don't always speak last in meetings. Sometimes speak first. Don't always wait for others to finish. Occasionally interrupt with precision. Don't always take time to decide. Sometimes respond instantly. I would vary my decision-making pace to keep my subordinates constantly attentive. Practice the art of strategic inconsistency. Be harsh with a mistake one day, surprisingly lenient the next. Maintain strict protocol in one meeting, be casually informal in another. I would shift between extreme discipline and unexpected generosity, keeping everyone around me in a state of alert anticipation. Your presence should make others question their scripts. When they expect you to sit, stand. When they expect formality, be casual, but with such command that your casualness becomes more intimidating than their formality. I would sometimes discuss battle plans while eating apples, the casualness of the action highlighting rather than diminishing my authority. Remember, patterns are the architecture of mediocrity. Power moves in unexpected ways. Every great commander in history understood that predictability is death, in battle and in the rooms where decisions shape destiny. Start tonight. In your next meeting, identify the patterns. Who speaks first, who defers, who dominates, then deliberately disrupt them. Speak out of turn, but with such authority that your interruption feels like the new natural order. When others are loud, be quiet. When they rush, move slowly. When they expect weakness, show strength. When they expect strength, show calculated restraint. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. Those who can break patterns can rewrite the rules of power. And those who can rewrite the rules can reshape the world. Most leaders make a critical mistake. They address the ego when they should speak to the soul. I didn't build an empire by flattering vanity. I awakened something deeper in men's hearts. Let me teach you how to speak past the surface and command the depths of human nature. When I addressed my troops before battle, I never appealed to their desire for glory alone. I spoke to their hunger for meaning, their yearning to be part of something greater than themselves. This is the first principle. True power doesn't manipulate ego. It awakens destiny. Most of you waste energy on superficial persuasion. You compliment, cajole, and coax, treating humans like creatures of pure vanity. This marks you as manipulators, not leaders. When I needed my men to march through Russian winter, I didn't flatter their bravery. I showed them their place in history. Learn to speak to the eternal part of human nature. Every person carries deep questions. Who am I? What is my purpose? How will I be remembered? When you address these questions, ego defenses melt away. I would often speak to my youngest officers not about promotion, but about legacy, how their actions would echo through time. Your words must carry weight beyond the moment. When someone challenges you, don't engage their temporary emotion. Speak to their permanent nature. I once silenced a rebellious general not by asserting my authority, but by asking him how he wished his grandchildren to remember this moment. The rebellion died in that question. Master the art of elevated conversation. Most speak to circumstances. Speak instead to principles. Most address problems, address purpose. When my armies faced impossible odds, I didn't discuss tactics first. I spoke of destiny, of France, of the arc of history they were bending with their will. Your presence must awaken greatness in others. Don't try to make people feel good. Make them feel capable of greatness. There's a crucial difference. I never told my men they were good soldiers. I showed them they were capable of impossible achievements. This distinction marks the boundary between motivation and transformation. Learn to use silence as a soul-level trigger. When someone speaks from ego, let your silence create a space for their deeper nature to emerge. I would often respond to boasts or complaints with a look that seemed to see past the speaker's words to their essential nature. This silence often led to profound shifts in conversation. Most crucially, understand that every human carries a sleeping giant within them. Your task is not to convince their conscious mind, but to awaken their sleeping potential. When I promoted officers, I didn't praise their past performance. I painted a picture of what they could become that was so compelling, their current self began to feel like a constraint. Your words must create space for transformation. Don't tell people what they are. Show them what they could be. When I needed extraordinary effort, I didn't demand it. I described the person capable of such effort with such clarity that my men rushed to become that person. Practice the art of speaking to future selves. When addressing someone, speak not to who they are, but to who they are becoming. I would often address young lieutenants as if they were already marshals, creating a virtual future they felt compelled to grow into. Your vision must be infectious, but not imposed. Don't force your dream on others. Awaken dreams that resonate with their deepest truth. When I shared my vision for France, I didn't simply describe it. I helped each person see their own highest purpose within it. Remember, the ego is temporary, but the soul's aspirations are eternal. When you speak to the soul, you bypass the usual defenses and connect with something that transcends daily concerns. Start tonight. In your next important conversation, ignore the surface tensions. Speak instead to the eternal questions that drive all human hearts: meaning, purpose, legacy. Watch how the conversation shifts from transaction to transformation. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. When you speak to the ego, you may win compliance. But when you speak to the soul, you win lifelong devotion. And devotion, not obedience, builds empires. Power requires perfect balance between mercy and might. I built my empire not just through conquest, but through knowing precisely when to extend my hand and when to make a fist. Let me teach you the art of calibrated response, when to praise and when to crush resistance. First, understand this: both excessive praise and excessive harshness mark you as weak. The first makes you seem desperate for approval. The second betrays your insecurity. When I led armies, I was neither the general who constantly praised nor the tyrant who only punished. I was the commander who responded with perfect precision to each situation. Most of you err on one side or the other. You either praise too freely, diluting its power, or you crush too often, breeding resentment. Power lies in the perfect balance. I would sometimes remain silent after a great victory, making my eventual praise carry more weight. Other times, I would praise minor actions encouraging specific behaviors I wanted to see repeated. Learn to use praise as a scalpel, not a hammer. When you praise, be specific and strategic. Don't say good work. Identify exactly what was exemplary and why it matters. When one of my marshals executed a brilliant maneuver, I wouldn't praise his success. I would praise the specific thinking that led to that success, encouraging not just the action, but the mindset. Your criticism must be equally precise. Don't crush spirit. Crush specific behaviors that threaten order. When I discovered a plot against my command, I didn't punish everyone involved equally. I identified the leaders and made examples of them while showing measured mercy to their followers. This precision made both my punishment and my mercy more meaningful. Master the art of calibrated response. Your reaction must match not just the situation, but its wider implications. Sometimes a minor infraction requires harsh response because of what it represents. Other times, a serious mistake can be handled with surprising leniency because of the lesson it teaches. I once promoted a general who failed spectacularly but honestly. His failure taught the Army more than a dozen small successes. Your praise must be earned, never expected. Create an environment where people work for your approval without being dependent on it. I would sometimes withhold praise for excellent performance, then praise the resilience shown in continuing excellence without recognition. This taught my officers to act from internal standards, not external validation. Learn to use public praise and private criticism strategically. Praise in public when you want to encourage specific behaviors in others. Criticize in private when you need to correct without creating resentment. But occasionally, reverse this. Public criticism of a strong ally shows no one is above correction. Private praise builds deep loyalty. Most crucially, understand that both praise and punishment are tools of influence, not expressions of personal feeling. When I praised or punished, it was never about my emotions. It was about shaping behavior and maintaining order. This detachment made my responses more effective because they served strategy, not sentiment. Your timing must be perfect, immediate. Praise can seem reactive. Immediate punishment can seem emotional. Sometimes the most powerful response is delayed response. I would often wait days before acknowledging a victory or addressing a failure, letting anticipation build and giving my words more weight. Practice the art of the unexpected response. Sometimes praise what others would punish, punish what others would praise. When an officer admitted to a serious mistake before it could be discovered, I promoted him. His honesty was worth more than the cost of his error. When another celebrated a victory achieved through foolish risks, I relieved him of command. Success didn't justify endangering my strategy. Your response must always serve your larger vision. Before praising or punishing, ask yourself, how does this response serve my ultimate goals? I once pardoned a rival who expected execution, not from mercy, but because his gratitude made him more valuable than his death. Remember, the art of power lies not in the ability to praise or punish, but in knowing exactly which tool will shape the future you desire. Sometimes a smile does more damage than a sword. Sometimes severity is the greatest kindness. Start tonight. Before you praise or criticize, pause. Ask yourself, what behavior am I really encouraging? What lesson will others learn from my response? Let strategy, not emotion, guide your hand. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. True power lies not in the ability to crush or praise, but in the wisdom to know which will build the future you envision. Legends are not born, they are forged through iron discipline. I didn't become Napoleon through talent alone, but through a level of self-mastery that turned my every movement into a statement of power. Let me teach you how discipline creates an aura that commands respect without demanding it. First, understand that discipline is not punishment. It is architecture for greatness. Every great leader in history built their power on a foundation of personal discipline so absolute it became legendary. When my soldiers saw me sleeping on the ground like them, eating the same rations, working longer hours, they weren't following orders. They were following excellence. Most of you mistake discipline for restriction. You see it as something that constrains you, when in fact, it is something that frees you to operate at your highest level. My discipline in studying military strategy wasn't a burden. It was the foundation that allowed me to make instant decisions in battle that seemed like genius to others. Learn to make discipline visible without displaying it. People should see the results of your discipline, not the exercise of it. I never talked about how many hours I spent studying maps or planning campaigns. I simply demonstrated such deep knowledge that others naturally assumed I must be operating on a different level of dedication. Your discipline must become your signature. Every action, every word, every gesture should carry the weight of careful cultivation. When I entered a room, people could feel the controlled power in my movements. This wasn't natural. It was the result of rigorous self-discipline in every aspect of my presentation. Master the art of consistent excellence. Discipline isn't about occasional brilliance. It's about maintaining high standards even in small moments when no one is watching. I would inspect my own boots with the same attention I gave to battle plans. This consistency created an aura of inevitable success. Your discipline must extend beyond public performance. The private habits that no one sees shape the public presence that everyone feels. I maintained the same rigid schedule, whether in palace or battlefield, rising early, working late, never varying my routine unless strategy demanded it. This private discipline radiated public authority. Learn to use discipline as a form of communication. When others are frantic, your calm discipline speaks volumes. When they are lazy, your focused energy shames them without a word. I would often respond to chaos not with orders, but with conspicuous focus, letting my discipline silence disorder. Most crucially, understand that discipline creates freedom. When your basic behaviors are automated through discipline, your mind is free to focus on higher strategy. I could make rapid decisions in battle because discipline had made basic military principles as natural as breathing. Your discipline must become contagious. People around you should feel compelled to raise their standards simply by being in your presence. When my officers spent time with me, they naturally began adopting my work habits, my attention to detail, my standards of excellence. Discipline, when embodied perfectly, creates a slipstream that pulls others toward greatness. Practice the art of disciplined spontaneity. When your base level of operation is highly disciplined, you can afford to be spontaneous without losing control. I would sometimes break formal protocol, but because my normal behavior was so disciplined, these moments of informality carried special power. Your discipline must serve your legend. Every habit, every routine, every standard you maintain should reinforce the story of your greatness. I didn't just work hard, I worked hard in ways that became legendary. My ability to go days without sleep, to remember every soldier's name, to make decisions instantly, these weren't just habits, they were chapters in my legend. Remember, discipline is not about controlling yourself, it's about building yourself. Every act of discipline is a brick in the foundation of your empire. Every standard you maintain becomes a pillar of your power. Start tonight. Choose one aspect of your behavior, your morning routine, your work habits, your physical presentation, and raise it to the level of absolute discipline, not for a day or a week, but as a permanent statement of your standards. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. People don't follow discipline, they follow the legends that discipline creates. And legends, once forged through discipline, command rooms without saying a word. True loyalty cannot be bought, demanded, or begged. It must be inspired. I didn't maintain an empire through force alone, but through creating such unwavering loyalty that my men would follow me into the depths of Russian winter. Let me teach you how to earn the kind of loyalty that survives every challenge. First, understand this. People don't follow titles. They follow conviction. When I took command of the Army of Italy, I was younger than most of my generals. But I didn't ask for their loyalty. I demonstrated such absolute conviction in our mission that disloyalty began to feel like betrayal of their own potential. Most of you try to win loyalty through external means, promises, rewards, threats. This marks you as amateur commanders. True loyalty is internal, born from the unshakable belief that following you is following greatness. I never bribed my marshals. With gold, I offered them a chance to write their names in history. Learn to create loyalty through vision, not provision. Don't promise people success, show them their own greatness through your eyes. When I spoke to my troops before battle, I didn't focus on victory or defeat. I showed them who they were capable of becoming. This vision of their potential bound them to me more strongly than any oath. Your presence must make people feel more powerful, not less. Many leaders try to build loyalty by making others feel dependent on them. I did the opposite. I made my officers feel that being in my presence elevated them above their normal capabilities. This created loyalty born of inspiration, not fear. Master the art of selective trust. Loyalty grows when trust is earned, not given. I would often give new officers challenging tasks, not to test their ability, but to give them the opportunity to earn trust. When they succeeded, my recognition wasn't praise, it was increased responsibility. This created a cycle of growing loyalty through earned advancement. Your loyalty must be both visible and valuable. When someone showed unwavering loyalty, I didn't just reward them. I demonstrated my own loyalty to them in ways others could see. This created reputation. Loyalty to Napoleon was always repaid in kind. But my loyalty had to be earned through excellence, never through mere flattery. Learn to use shared hardship as a forge for loyalty. When my troops saw me sleeping in the snow, eating the same hard bread, enduring the same freezing conditions, their loyalty deepened. Not because I suffered with them, but because they saw that I held myself to the same standards I demanded of them. Most crucially, understand that loyalty is tested in small moments more than large ones. It's not just about following you into battle, it's about maintaining standards when you're not watching. I would sometimes observe my units unofficially, not to catch them failing, but to witness their excellence when they thought no one was looking. Your vision must be worth being loyal to. People don't maintain loyalty to small dreams or petty ambitions. When I shared my vision for France, for Europe, for history itself, I made it so grand yet so attainable that loyalty to me became loyalty to their own highest aspirations. Practice the art of earned intimacy. Loyalty deepens when people feel personally connected to greatness. I would sometimes share meals with common soldiers, not to be popular, but to let them feel the magnitude of our mission up close. This personal connection to power inspired fierce loyalty. Your standards must remain absolute. Nothing kills loyalty faster than seeing excellence compromised. When I maintained the same exacting standards for myself that I demanded of others, it created an environment where loyalty to the mission became natural. Everyone knew that in Napoleon's army, greatness wasn't requested, it was required. Remember, loyalty is not about making people like you. It's about making them believe in something greater than themselves and showing them that following you is the path to that greatness. Start tonight. Don't ask for loyalty. Create an environment where disloyalty feels like self-betrayal. Hold yourself to standards so high that others feel elevated just by meeting them. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. True loyalty isn't pledged in grand ceremonies. It's built in small moments of witnessed excellence, and once earned, it becomes a force that can reshape the world. Every space you enter is a theater, and every interaction is a performance that must serve your greater purpose. I didn't just occupy rooms, I commanded them, turning each space into a stage for power. Let me teach you how to transform any environment into your personal theater of influence. First, understand that every room has its own psychology. The way people arrange themselves, the invisible lines of power, the natural focal points, these are your props and your playground. When I entered the Grand Hall at Tilsit to meet Tsar Alexander, I didn't just walk into a room, I walked onto a stage I had already blocked in my mind. Most of you waste the theatrical potential of space. You enter rooms passively, accepting their existing dynamics. This is why you remain background characters in others' plays. I would assess every space for its dramatic potential, the lighting, the sightlines, the acoustic properties. Everything became a tool for commanding attention. Learn to use space as your costume. Different rooms require different performances. In a small council chamber, intensity can be intimate and focused. In a grand hall, gestures must be larger, presence more expansive. I would modulate my energy to match and then dominate the space I occupied. Your movement must tell a story. Don't just cross a room, make every step part of a narrative. When I moved through crowds, each pause, each gesture, each change of direction was choreographed to build tension and command focus. People couldn't look away because every movement promised something significant. Master the art of spatial dominance. Identify the power position in any room and claim it immediately, not by rushing to it, but by moving with such purpose that your occupation of that space seems inevitable. I would often stand perfectly still in the strongest position, letting others orbit around me like planets around a sun. Your presence must reshape the room's energy. When you enter, the space should feel different. This isn't about being loud or aggressive. It's about carrying such concentrated purpose that the atmosphere bends around you. I could silence a crowded room simply by shifting my posture slightly. Learn to use levels strategically. Height differences, stairs, platforms, these aren't just architectural features, they're opportunities for dramatic emphasis. I would sometimes deliver crucial information from slightly elevated positions, not from ego, but because the physical elevation reinforced the weight of my words. Most crucially, understand that every interaction is a scene in your larger story. Whether you're in a boardroom or a battlefield tent, you're not just communicating, you're adding to your legend. I would orchestrate even casual conversations to reinforce the narrative of power I was creating. Your timing must be theatrical. Know when to make an entrance, when to deliver your key messages, when to exit. I would sometimes delay my arrival, not from poor planning, but to build anticipation. When the moment was right, my entrance carried the weight of their accumulated expectation. Practice the art of dramatic contrast. If everyone is rushing, move slowly. If they're seated, stand. If they're loud, be quiet. These contrasts naturally draw focus and create dramatic tension. I would often respond to chaos with conspicuous calm, making my stillness the most commanding presence in the room. Your exit must be as powerful as your entrance. Don't just leave a room, leave an impression. I would sometimes end conversations by turning away at the perfect moment, leaving others with the feeling that something significant had just occurred. Every exit should feel like the end of an important scene. Remember, you're not just occupying space, you're creating theater. Every room is a stage, every person present is part of your cast, and every interaction is an opportunity to advance your narrative of power. Start tonight. Before you enter any room, pause. Ask yourself, what scene am I about to create? How can this space serve my purpose? What role must I play to command this stage? Because here's what I learned in building an empire. Life is theater, and power belongs to those who can turn every room into their stage. Your audience is always watching. Make every moment worth watching. The end of a conversation is as crucial as its beginning. I didn't just finish discussions. I concluded them with such finality that my words continued to resonate long after I'd left the room. Let me teach you how to end every interaction so that your influence extends beyond your presence. First, understand that most conversations don't end. They simply fade away. This is the mark of weak leadership. When I concluded a war council, there was never doubt about what had been decided or what would happen next. Every ending was a launch point for action, not a mere cessation of words. Most of you end conversations weakly. You trail off, allow uncertainty to linger, leave doors open that should be closed. This undermines everything you've built in the interaction. When I ended a discussion with my marshals, it was like the final stroke of a sword. Clean, decisive, and impossible to ignore. Learn to recognize the perfect moment for conclusion. Timing is everything. End too early, and matters remain unresolved. End too late, and your impact dissolves in unnecessary words. I would often conclude conversations at their energetic peak, when my final statement could serve as both exclamation point and command. Your final words must be memorable. Don't end with passive phrases like, "we'll see," or "let's think about it." End with statements that demand action or commemoration. When I told my troops, "From these pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you," it wasn't just a conclusion. It was a statement that would echo through their minds during battle. Master the art of the decisive exit. Once you've delivered your final statement, leave. Don't linger. Don't allow the energy to dissipate. I would often turn and walk away immediately after delivering a crucial order, making my exit part of the command's emphasis. The space you leave creates gravity that pulls others toward action. Your conclusion must serve your larger strategy. Every conversation should end in a way that advances your goals. Sometimes this means ending with a clear command, sometimes with a thought-provoking question, sometimes with silence. I would choose my closing based not on the conversation at hand, but on its role in my broader campaign. Learn to use silence as a seal. After delivering your final statement, hold silence for 2 beats longer than comfortable. This silence stamps your words into memory. When I delivered ultimatums to foreign diplomats, I would often hold silence after my final word, letting the weight of the moment compound the weight of the message. Most crucially, understand that your conclusion should feel both inevitable and surprising. The best endings seem perfectly natural, yet leave others slightly off balance. When I ended negotiations, I would often do so with a statement that seemed to arise naturally from the discussion, yet shifted its entire meaning. Your physical presence must reinforce your verbal conclusion. Stand when you deliver your final words. Square your shoulders. Make direct eye contact. These physical elements turn your conclusion into a multi-sensory command. I would often deliver my final statement while standing at my full height, making my physical presence punctuate my words. Practice the art of the memorable phrase. Your final statement should be brief, powerful, and impossible to misunderstand. When I told my men impossible is a word only to be found in the dictionary of fools, it wasn't just a conclusion, it was a principle that would guide their actions in my absence. Your exit must prevent further discussion. Move with such purpose that reopening the conversation feels like a violation of natural law. I would often conclude counsels by standing and moving toward the door with such conviction that even those who wished to continue speaking found themselves silent. Remember, the end of a conversation is not just its conclusion, it's the bridge to future action. Your final words should set events in motion that continue your influence long after you've left the room. Start tonight. End every interaction with purposeful conclusion. No trailing off, no uncertain goodbyes. Make each ending so clear and powerful that others feel compelled to act on your words. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. It's not the length of your presence that determines your influence. It's the resonance of your exit. Power is not a position. It is a state of being. I wasn't an emperor because they crowned me. They crowned me because I was already an emperor in my bearing, my actions, my very essence. Let me show you how to carry the crown in your character, not just your title. First, understand that true power is not contextual. Most people act powerful in some situations and powerless in others. This inconsistency reveals them as pretenders. When I walked through peasant villages, I carried the same authority as when I strode through palace halls. Power is not a costume you wear, it is your skin. Most of you fragment your power. You command in some spaces, but shrink in others. You speak with authority in your domain, but become small in unfamiliar territory. This is why you will never truly command. I maintained the same level of presence whether addressing kings or common soldiers. The environment changed. I did not. Learn to make every space your natural domain. Whether you're in a boardroom or a coffee shop, your energy should transform the space into your court. I would enter peasant cottages with the same centered gravity that I brought to grand ballrooms. The space doesn't grant you authority. Your presence defines the space. Your sovereignty must be internal, not external. Don't wait for circumstances to make you powerful. Emanate power into every circumstance. When I was imprisoned on Elba, I didn't stop being an emperor. I turned my prison into a palace through the sheer force of my conducted power. Master the art of consistent command. Your voice should carry the same weight, whether you're ordering dinner or ordering armies. Your movements should have the same purposeful grace, whether crossing a street or crossing a battlefield. I never turned on my power. I simply maintained its constant flow. Your standards must remain absolute, regardless of setting. Don't lower your expectations because the environment seems less formal. I would inspect a cavalry stable with the same exacting attention I gave to palace architecture. This consistency of standards marks you as sovereign over every domain you enter. Learn to create your environment through your presence. Don't adapt to spaces. Make spaces adapt to you. When I entered a room, it became a command center. When I stood in a field, it became a court. This isn't about imposing your will. It's about emanating such clear purpose that the environment naturally reorganizes around you. Most crucially, understand that every interaction is an opportunity to demonstrate sovereignty. Whether you're speaking to a waiter or a minister, your underlying energy of command should remain constant. I would give orders to stable boys with the same clear authority I used with field marshals. The scale changed. The sovereignty did not. Your composure must be environmental, not situational. Don't let your surroundings dictate your state. In victory or defeat, luxury or hardship, maintain the same centered power. When we retreated from Russia, I walked with the same measured dignity I showed in triumph. True power is revealed most clearly in adversity. Practice the art of portable majesty. Your posture, your gesture, your gaze should carry the same royal weight whether you're in rags or regalia. I once conducted a military council in a peasant's hut. By the end of the meeting, that hut felt like a palace war room. The space elevated to match my energy. Your authority must be so natural that it seems strange when others don't recognize it. Don't demand recognition, assume it. I never argued for my authority. I simply operated with such clear sovereignty that questioning it seemed absurd. True power doesn't convince. It simply is. Remember, you are not becoming powerful in moments. You are powerful in all moments. Your task is not to accumulate power, but to stop hiding the power you naturally possess. Start tonight. Move through every space as if it were your natural domain. Speak to every person as if your authority is already established. Carry yourself with such clear sovereignty that titles become mere formalities. Because here's what I learned in building an empire. The crown is not on your head, it is in your bearing. The throne is not under you, it is within you. Every environment is your empire when you carry sovereignty in your soul.